So once you've scanned in your radial design, next we need to bring it into Illustrator so we can trace it and color it in. So you're going to start a new document and go ahead and give it your file name that we've told you need to add. And so your last name, first initial, and I apologize, I'm at home right now, so I'm not remembering everything else, but I'm assuming it was 02 Spring 2015 Radial Design. And then something that we're going to do different this time is we're going to set up 4 artboards, and you'll see the effect of this in just a second. And then for the size of this, we're going to make this a 6 by 6, and we're going to click OK. So let me adjust my recording screen here. I'll be back with you in just a second. So then, now that we have our artboard set up, we want to bring our scan into Illustrator. And so in order to do that, we're going to go to File and Place, and then locate where you saved your sketch at. And just for a moment here, I want to bring in a file that doesn't work so well for this and just show you an example of what can happen. And so I've got a really simple image here, and you can see it's just 3 circles on top of each other, but for this project this is really kind of too light. And so just to show you what's going to happen if your image wasn't scanned correctly, when I trace it, which this is when Illustrator is automatically detecting where the lines are, it disappears completely. So I can come into these image trace settings, and I can try to get those to show up, and as you see I have preview clicked down at the bottom here, and so I can see that it's bringing some of those lines up, and I can increase my paths and everything. And just in case when you open up this you see advanced closed, this is how you get this open. The problem is when we're finished here we have gaps in here. Let me see if I can zoom in for you. And these gaps are going to mean that we're not able to fill in like we want to. So we would expand, and I'll go over this again here in just a little bit. And then when we use our live paint bucket, which is K on the keyboard, when we try to fill in some of these, it allows the paint to go through these gaps up here. So I just show you this as an example of making sure that you have your sketch inked well and scanned in correctly. It's worth going back and redoing those steps if for some reason it's not working. It's a lot easier to go ahead and ink it correctly and rescan. So now I have my quality student sketch here, my good one, and what I'm going to do is copy this so that I have the same sketch in each of my 4 artboards. My advice to you would be that we need to make sure that it is sized the same size for each of your artboards, because what we're going to do here in a little while when we're finished with this is mat it on black paper, and we want all of them to be the same size. So I'm going to copy, put them all in basically the same position, but I know they're the same size. And then I'm going to come up here and I'm going to select all 4 of them. Oh, it won't let me do all 4. Well, I take this back. I'm not going to copy them until I actually trace the first one. So I have this selected, notice with my black selection tool, with my, just my selection tool. And I'm going to click on Image Trace. You can see that it's changed slightly. If you looked away from your computer, you probably didn't see anything change. Now you're going to click on Expand up here. And just notice if you're not on the selection tool, this bar across the top here won't appear. So if I happen to be on the text tool, or the, well, okay, some of the tools won't show up for. Prove me wrong. So anyway, click on Expand now, and you'll see that it has outlined all the different parts of your sketch. So now this is when we should paste, copy and paste, and move a copy over. Select both of these, copy, paste, and drag these down to the artboards at the bottom. Place them down here. Put them in position. Okay, so we've traced these now, and what that means is that each individual different part of my sketch here is going to be available for me to fill in. And so we're going to use a live paint bucket, which is K on your keyboard if you want to switch to it quickly. And we need to have this selected first before we press K on the keyboard. So select it and then switch to the live paint tool. And notice there's lots of parts to our cursor right now. If you pay attention to the box that shows the fill up there in our cursor, that tells us what color it's going to fill with. And then we have the arrow that is pointing to the area that we're actually going to fill. And then there's the bucket. So if I wanted to just go around and fill this with black, this is what I would do. But that's not the assignment. We're supposed to be doing analogous colors, we're supposed to be doing complementary colors. And so if I were filling this in with complementary colors, I would choose portions like that, and orange is a complementary color. That's kind of a reddish orange. So choose a little bit more straightforward orange. There we go. Another part of the assignment is that you're supposed to use gradients and patterns. And so that's handy if there happens to be a gradient that has the colors you need, but oftentimes there's not. And so we need to be able to edit our gradients. And so notice what I did is I chose a gradient from my swatches, and this happens to be an orange and yellow. And now if I switch to the gradient tool, we can change the gradient color. So I just want the orange. I'm going to change the rest of these colors into the blue color. And so now I have this gradient. It's not useful to me though until it's in my swatches palette. So what we can do now is click and drag this over to the swatches palette and drop it in there. Or there's other options where you can, I guess that's the easiest way of doing it. It's dragging and dropping it over. So now if I have that selected, notice where it had the black sample of the fill color up above my cursor. Now it has the colors, or in this case the gradients before and after the one I have selected. That's going to come in handy here in just a little while. We could also change this gradient so that instead of being linear, that it's radial. Drag that one over to our swatches palette. And that gives it a little bit different look. And then finally we want to be able to edit patterns and add patterns. And you're not going to use a billion different gradients and a billion different swatch or patterns on all of your designs. It would look atrocious if you did. But in this case we're just going to drop a pattern in here and we're going to edit it. And so in order to edit a pattern, we need to do the same thing as we did with this gradient. We need to be able to drag it into the swatches palette in order to edit it. So once we have it in there, we can add it to an area of our design, and then come back up here in your swatches palette and click twice. It's going to be overwhelming because it's going to fill your entire artboard with this. But notice up here at the top it says save a copy, done, and cancel. As soon as we're finished editing the colors in our pattern, we're going to click on done, and this everything will go away except for what we have in that one area of our sketch. And so we're going to come up here and switch to our direct selection tool. And notice as I'm just hovering over the different parts, it shows me what I can add colors to. And so if I click, I can come back to my color swatches, and we were using blue and orange on this. So if I want to change this pattern to just be blue, I go through and choose all the different parts of the pattern. And so anytime over here on the right hand side I see that I've selected something that had brown in it, I'm going to change that to blue instead. So I just have to find all the different parts of the pattern and change it. And so I'm just changing these to all be blue, and they're just different tints of blue. But you could make one of these orange if you wanted to. Just depends on your taste. I'm going to leave this blue. Come up here and click on Done or Save a Copy. And so this Save a Copy, I can make my own blue it was Pompadour in the beginning. And so it's going to be added to my swatches panel, and I'll still have my Pompadour one over here. And so now I can click on Done, and it's changed that in that one box. And if I switch back to my live paint bucket, I can add that swatch to other areas as well. So if I wanted to do like this, that works. And so you're able to do that with any pattern. Key parts here, make sure and pull the pattern that you want over to your swatches palette. And don't forget that you have additional patterns that you can open from the drop down menu. And so if you want decorative, you can open up whole libraries of different decorative kinds of patterns and add to your swatches palette that then you can edit the colors on. Okay, so you're going to be doing this for each of your 4 designs. Make sure and save. Oh, and one thing, sorry, I forgot to show you. Notice here when I'm on my live paint bucket, if you use your right and left arrow keys on your keyboard, you can scroll through the different colors in whatever swatches palette you have open at the time. And so if I wanted to scroll through, let's see, different colors here, it'll show more than one color at a time. Unfortunately, my swatches palette is not behaving properly right now. And so on yours it would work. So anyway, I hope this helps. Mrs. Salmons and I will be walking around and giving you advice. My advice basically is try not to do too much. You want to make sure that you're not turning people off from looking at your design. But have fun with it. There's some cool things you can do with this. Thanks. Have a good day.